Hi everybody, so it's June 2nd and I posted a video yesterday of doing mark making over top of this watercolor background, and I want to show you how I fit art into my life every day with a fairly busy schedule. And it's just my passion and I have to do art, so I just wanted to take you with me on this journey. And so this is almost complete, but there's still some mark making techniques I'd love to do over these pages. And I really was craving this beautiful turquoise Posca acrylic paint pen to go maybe over top of this dark turquoise. If you watched my video, this was a happy accident of sorts, as I had quite a bit of paint come out and I just decided not to do a full circle. I decided to embrace the happy accident and do this open circle. And I realized I really love it, but these are very open. And I just wanted something a little bit more solid. And I feel like this lighter turquoise would look much better. So I'm just gonna sort of what I would call try it on, which is like, you know, you don't have to commit to anything because you can always paint over, right? So what I have done is just used my little stencil and I'm gonna just color in this light turquoise circle with the lighter turquoise paint pen. And as I was saying in my other videos, you always want to go over top, especially if you're selling your work or if you want to have that really painterly quality with paint pens especially, you want to go over top more than once. I go over top of my work usually 2, 3, 4 times. So these petals that are orange, I went over those at least 3 times with my paint marker. That's just a little tip when you get started if you feel like you can't quite get this opaque painted look, and it's because you may want to let this dry, go back to it, and then go over it again. So good art does take time, but it's just a really great practice. You know, you can see that I've gone back to these pages today and I still feel like there's so much I can do, and I don't need a lot of time. It's just letting things dry, you know, getting my creativity in for the day and then going back to it at a later date when I feel like it. Right now I'm going to go to my black paint pen and I'm just going to fill in some of those areas that had that white line work that I had done during the last video. You can see I snuck in this light gray petal right here, and I actually found a new leaf design that I absolutely love. I just stumbled on it, and it's sort of like, I'll just take, I can show you here. So if this is sort of my botanical, you know, you want to ask yourself, do you like rounded leaves? Do you like more pointed leaves? What is already in the composition of the piece you're working on? You know, is it just an art journal or a page you're just playing around on and you want to try different shaped leaves? So I'm just going to let that dry for a second and I'll show you this beautiful mark that I had discovered and I really like. I'm going to use my micron pen. And so the mark was a line just through the center, and then one kind of line coming off with a dot. And looking at this here, I prefer it the white on black, but it really is just something, it just kind of came to me because these little leaves aren't very big. And this is typically how I would do the mark making. I don't know how well you can see this, but the leaf designs that I have in a lot of my work look like this, or they look more like this. And the one that I have discovered is this one. So I am going to grab my white paint pen and just show you over top of this black. I really love that. And so you will stumble on mark making that you love just by playing around, and that kind of becomes your own. I just wanted to show you that. Very excited to learn a new mark making technique that I really love. And looking at this composition, I'm going to go to my reference art journal, which I was sort of emulating because after I painted this, it just really spoke to me. I love everything about the colors and the textures and the layout, and I wanted to bring that into this one here. What I haven't done yet is added these non-traditional kind of rainbows, these half circles, and I think I'm going to add that in over here, maybe over here. Just gonna take a quick look and see. I love to use neutral colors when I have so much color in my background. I could add in some brights. This back underpainting is very bright, whereas this one has some room to move. Just trying to decide, and I can always change my mind after. What do I want to do? I think I'm gonna do maybe a navy rainbow, starting with some navy in it, almost to pull the navy that's this watercolor here. And I wanted this to be a resting space, but I feel like I could do a rainbow here. And so this is something I would go over because although it's a navy paint pen, it is a bit lighter. I will go over that after when it dries. I'm also thinking I want to do some gray in here. You can see I'm not too fussy that this isn't a perfect U shape. I can go over it. It's not a big deal. Do I want to bring in some other colors? I love to bring in black when I have a lot of brights. So I'm going to do some black here. And I'm really happy with that. And when it dries, I can add more colors, metallics, go over it. Right now I see that I could add some bronze. I'm gonna grab my bronze paint pen, and I feel like doing a solid U right here along the horizon. So you can see the bit of the shimmer in the bronze and then the gold of the moon. And maybe I want to have something over here. I like that I didn't fill up this whole page. It's almost full, but there is some room to move here. I'm just looking at this. What do I want to put in here? Maybe like a light yellow. Maybe it would be too busy. I might just leave it as is for now. I'm gonna really, not to be too hard on your ears, shake up this paint pen. And again, it's time to go over this lighter turquoise because it's dry now. I kind of do my art in stages. I do the background in one sitting. I let it dry and then I come back to it either later in that day, maybe half an hour later, maybe a month later. It's when I feel like going back to it. Just looking at this color here, I love it, and I want to add in some kind of mark with it over here. I think what I'm going to do, looking at the lines, I have a variety in lines kind of going this way, these little marks. Maybe I can do something similar, but just not quite as, maybe more horizontal. I could also do some dots around the moon, but I think I'm going to keep that area as is. So what I'm going to do is actually just do maybe some flicks just to add in that color over here. And I'm deciding, do I love it? If I love it, I want to repeat it. Yes, I do love it. I'm going to add it in up here. And maybe I'll add it in one more place across the page, so it kind of looks more like a diptych painting, which is, working on one page and having a partner or a sister painting, that you can kind of have them together. I really like that. I feel like this is almost finished. The one thing I was going to do was add a Titan buff color in one of these loops just to make it more solid, but I think adding this in, I'm okay with the way this looks now. And I'm really, really pleased with it. I think I'm gonna go in and add maybe a little bit of gold in here. And with that same design I discovered, with a line through the middle, a line off the side, and then a dot on the other side. I really like that. And then I'm just deciding, do I want to fill in that light gray? I don't. I'm really happy with it. Again, pretty soon I can go back to this and add some more paint. But I feel like that my painting is really, it's almost finished. It's almost come together, these sketchbook pages. You can see I'm going to go back over top of this area and darken it up. I'm also going to darken up the black. So I'm using my black Sharpie water-based acrylic paint pen. And I'm feeling like I could add some black dots over here, just randomly. In here. Do I like that? I do like that. And maybe add some down there. Maybe adding some through over here. And I feel like adding dots can be magical. There's something magical about the repeating pattern of dots, for me anyway. Okay, so there we have it. I feel like this is a finished diptych sketchbook, or these double pages. These 2 pages are complete, which would be one beautiful whole painting. And yeah, I'm really happy with this. So I feel like my interest, like I said in my other video, this is the layout I typically do. I love the drips, but I just needed to have some variety in my practice because I'm a bit tight when it comes to mark making over top of this style because I do it all the time. And this landscape mode has just trained my brain to see mark making in a slightly different way. And now I want to go back and revisit this composition and pull what I've learned from here. So my sketchbook is an inspiration file of sorts where when I'm sitting and I'm looking at a blank page, I can see, oh, like I absolutely love this fuchsia. Oh, you know, maybe I don't love this rusted orange color. Maybe I like the thin lines, but I don't really like this half circle, this happy accident I did. So it's just sort of like looking at your sketchbook, figuring out what you love, repeating what you love, and editing out what you don't love and not repeating what you don't love. So you'll get to the point when you first start, even if it's like the tiniest little area of your journal that you know, maybe you're a bit critical, hard on yourself, perfectionistic, but even if you can take, say, a painting that you've done, this is an example of one that I've just started that doesn't have much on here. And maybe you can decide, you know what? I love how I added this gold shimmery watercolor in this part of the painting because it really stands out. And I love how I did the composition. Or, you know, you can go to, let's just find an example. This is a journal page I don't love, but I went back to it and I tried to make it into something I really, really do love. It's still not my favorite. If I was to resolve it, I might add silver paint pen and get rid of sort of this textured element right here, but it also looks like a coin of sorts and, you know, some kind of a token. Maybe that's something I am okay with. When I first look at this, I love these little orange, almost bird print marks, like footprints. I see, if I was to kind of frame an area I love, I feel like it would be this area here. I'm just not as big of a fan of what was going on up here or here. So, figuring out, even if it's the smallest area, using a little frame and just figuring out what it is that you love. Maybe you don't love much about it, but you loved the feel of the oil pastel and you love this color. Maybe you want to repeat that during your next practice page. So knowing that the sketchbook is just for play and not being afraid to play. I always feel like when you're investing in a more expensive sketchbook, you're less likely to let go. It's kind of like when you have this really expensive big white canvas in front of you, you get that fear of the blank page because it's this white blank slate staring back at you. Whereas if you make your own journal, or, this was a journal that it just shows this was me playing around. This is when I first started. I was actually playing with my signature. When I got married, it was around the time I really got more into art and thinking of art as a business, and I changed my last name. And this was just an example of how I didn't care what this page looked like. And I was practicing my signature. I was practicing these interesting lines that come from an Aboriginal art piece I have in my home. And I was taking a class through Flora Bowley, who's an intuitive artist out of Portland. She's lovely. I was taking these acrylic classes, so learning about acrylics. And on here, I haven't looked at this in so long, I wrote down burnt sienna plus Prussian blue. And I put almost a little frame around it, showing this is a color that I kind of like. And it was a discovery of adding burnt sienna and Prussian blue. I didn't even know what burnt sienna looked like or Prussian blue, probably 5 years ago. So this was all just learning. Oh, and I had the name of the artist, Brian Marion, Aboriginal nature art inspiration. So I sort of took some of the line work and I played around with my paint pen. I probably bought a new black paint pen and was just using it. Again, here I have written down gold. I don't know what that says. It's like a gold puffy paint, copper puffy paint, silver. This I wrote down as chalk marker versus metallic paint. I'm not exactly sure what that means, but looking at this, I do love the gold, and maybe my love for the gold happened around this time. And then I have the name of what that was I was using. So think of the sketchbook as just play. So these are really rough illustrations, drawings. They're very loose. I wrote Flora, the artist that I was taking the course from at the time. And I kind of borrowed some of the line work she was using that really resonated with me. And I copied some of the line work just to see how it felt, just to use, a pen that I may have on hand. And, maybe you splurge and you buy a really nice pen at the store and then you decide, okay, what is it about artists that I love? Do I have a Pinterest page? And looking at some of the art that appeals to you, is it the color palette? Is it the energy? Is it the abstraction or more the realism? What is the line work like? And can you bring some of those things into your work by being inspired by another artist and just making it your own through practice and play and turning off the judgment? Right now I do really love this shape here. And I feel like that would be a cool shape to have. It's one that I had just done, I think, in one of my journal pages with you all in a video. I'd had a circle around it, but looking back, I'm like, I kind of like this. I like that it's moving as though it's drooping. It's just very interesting. So looking at this, I may go back and add this into my landscape pages. And I didn't judge this because years ago I would have felt like, looking at this, it's just so beginner and the lines are all rough and, really judging myself and, this was just Flora's work. This wasn't mine. But you need to get over that. You need to just every day let something inspire you. Don't get overwhelmed. Set a bit of time aside and just play. And if you're not feeling it on those days, don't push it. Maybe go out and take some photos of things that inspire you. Go for a walk. Look at different images in nature. You can still really gain inspiration by not necessarily painting and creating with your hands. There's so many things you can do. That's all for now. I hope I've inspired you. I feel really excited that these pages are pretty much done. And again, I'm just going to go back and fill in this light turquoise. If I had a light turquoise paint, I could take a paintbrush and very carefully fill it in. I like that as well. Sometimes these pens are great to draw an outline with. And if you're not as comfortable painting with a paintbrush, it's like you can use the outline and then grab, just any basic paintbrush and practice with painting, getting a feel for what style brush you like, what, botanical shapes you may be doing, and what paints you would like to go over top of those. Anyways, thank you so much for staying with me, and I'm so excited to do more videos with you all. I've had such an incredible response, like overwhelming. I just started YouTube 3 or 4 weeks ago. It hasn't been even a month. And I started this as just for fun and for some relatives actually that are over the summer, they go to a very remote location that now has Wi-Fi and they want to learn how to paint. I have 2 beautiful aunts and a cousin, and I know they're going to be watching my videos. That was the reason I started these, although I absolutely love doing them, and the response has been so amazing that I want to keep them going. So thank you all for encouraging me. I have a lot to learn about YouTube and creating supply lists and linkages and playlists, but I will get there. This page, I feel like it's just calling my name today, these neons. This is actually gouache. So it's an opaque watercolor. These paints were from, I believe it was golden acrylic gouache, which I'll get into in a whole nother video. See, I'm already like inspired. I get so excited. But I had just played around with some new paints probably 6 months ago, one evening, and I thought, I'm just gonna let it dry and go back to it. And it's not until today that I opened up this page and I'm like, oh, this is so beautiful. I can't wait to do mark making over top. So that's where my next video might go. And do check it out. Thanks so much.